Hey there, everyone, and welcome to the Elder Scrolls of Gilden Coin. This is our second side quest, featuring Amrit, as played by Brenna,
Hello.
and on her first side quest for this campaign, Nysra, as played by Irish Bob.
Salutations.
So, for those of you who are just coming into the series, or may have missed the last one, every so often, some characters go off on their own little tasks and find themselves doing basically a little side quest separate from the rest of the party. So I covered those in much shorter sessions that I decided I'm going to post up for your guys' enjoyment. So we're gonna at the time of recording, we've played through session 11. We're actually going to kind of jump back to just after session 10. You guys have returned to Orsinium after collapsing a mountain. And everybody's kind of hanging out there for a couple of weeks, and you guys are also spending a couple of weeks of rest and relaxation. Which for Amrit means going to the Mages College and reading and writing. Nysra, Nysra, having noticed that Amrit has some issues in combat, has been tagging along and kind of keeping an eye on him at the Mages College. So, first things first, Amrit, you enter the college, and there's still quite a bit of work being done. There's some cataloging for what few artifacts were able to be brought back from the dig site. And on top of that, there are a couple of clerks busily writing things down in relation to the disaster at the mountain, trying to account for who is dead and or missing. And then still others are up to their own business, practicing various spells or researching various histories or arcane phenomena. What would you like to do amid the organized chaos of the Mages College?
Well, I don't want to tell anyone that I was there at the exploding mountain, so I'm going to avoid that. And I believe I wanted to just look up and research as much as I could about, I don't remember, really anything. I just want to get my hands on the Mages College library.
Since you haven't really been able to.
Yeah, I picked up where I left off. Okay, I really hope you don't pick up where you left off. That's how you got kicked out. Okay, no. Skipping that. Maybe pick a different subject.
Okay, so you're sitting down and reading. First book you pick up is a book on the histories of the known histories of the Dwemer.
Ooh, perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I wanted to translate the Dwemer writing on the rod. No, on the Numidium blueprints. Newman something.
Numidium.
Thank you.
Okay. And since you're trying to avoid the organized chaos elsewhere in the guild, I imagine you kind of just snatch the appropriate book and sneak off to your own little corner.
Oh, hells yes.
Can
I position myself in a corner where I can see people coming?
Yeah, there actually is a nice little alcove, and what makes it even better is from where you're sitting, there's only one entrance, so there's no way anybody could approach you without you noticing.
Awesome.
Nysra, what are you up to in here? As you're keeping an eye on Amrit.
What's the oldest book in the Mages College?
Go ahead and do an active investigation check.
Okay. That is a 19.
Okay. You're going through all these books and eventually come across a small section of the library that is actually enclosed. It's in a different room under lock and key.
Mm-hmm.
And when you ask an assistant, like, what's in there, they mention that they're the oldest books known to this particular guild. They're kept under lock and key because those who have access to them have special permissions.
Yeah. She asks how one goes about getting special permissions.
The young assistant, she's like a young wood elf. She looks at you inquisitively. She says, I really wouldn't know much. My best guess would be to gain approval from the local guild master. But I don't know if he'd be willing to let you into there unless you've got some sort of proof as to your reasons for going in there. She kind of stops and thinks. She's like, that came out wrong. She says, I guess what I'm trying to say is he has to know why you want access to those books, because they wouldn't be kept under lock and key unless it was pretty crucial and pivotal information.
Understandable. Because aside from this room, then, do you know where the next oldest book is?
She points up to the balcony overlooking the ground floor. She says, There's one in that display case up there. It's kept closed. The book itself is kept closed because it's said that anyone who reads it doesn't necessarily come back themselves, if at all.
That sounds interesting.
Intriguing. Do you know what the book is?
She shakes her head. She says, the second story library isn't accessible to apprentices. You have to have gained some sort of mastery.
Does Nysra have access to the second story?
Yes, she does.
But she doesn't have access to the locked room?
No, she does not.
Okay. Alright, then she'll go up to the second story.
Okay.
Find out what the book's
It sounds like something everyone will want to read.
Also, she has a lot of time to kill. She's probably read most of the books in this library. What are your goals in life? To read every book ever written. I really dislike that one guy's travel, though. I'm glad to hear that he passed away.
So you get up to the display case. It's a simple glass display case. A very simple lock on it. But inside is a book with a black cover but no discernible markings. As you look closer at it, you realize that it looks like the leather for the binding might not be cowhide.
What is the Necronomicon of Elder Scrolls? Nice.
Does she know what my book looks like?
Have you shown it to her?
You've been writing in it, probably.
Yeah, you don't sleep. That's right.
She does so for leisure and pleasure. Or boredom. Okay. Do I know what this book is?
Go ahead and give me a history check.
That would be a 15.
You've heard of something like it. The stories you've heard involve books bound in black leather in the service of a Daedric Prince. You're not entirely sure which prince, but you have a fairly reasonable guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's a book. Oh, I wonder who it could belong to. Perhaps the one with the library. Okay. She's like, intriguing. How is it that the library has obtained one if it belongs to Daedric Prince?
One of the things that the Mages Guild does, in addition to scholars, historians, and mages, they're also archaeologists.
Okay.
So they do often bring back artifacts either for cataloging within the guild, for arcane purposes, or for resale to nobility who might like such rare historical exotic artifacts and stuff like that. There's a variety of reasons.
I want it. I'm guessing because it is locked in glass, it is not allowed to be read.
You could surmise that, yeah.
She, like, before she leaves, like, she kind of just, like, lightly caresses the glass as she, like, gets ready to walk away. And she says in Daedric, one day.
The book
and
opens.
Then she's like, ooh. That look of, like, I didn't touch it. If it opens for me, am I in trouble for reading it?
Unbeknownst to Amrit, it opened when he opened his copy.
Okay.
And when you look inside of it, Nysra, you find there's a lot of writing in there in bizarre patterns. Some of it is written in in circular patterns. There are like brownish red illuminations around the margins. The ink itself appears to be dried blood. You would recognize that anywhere. And the page that you're looking at looks like it's in the process of being written. Can you read Daedric?
Yes. Read and write.
It seems. It seems like it's writing. It seems like what's being recorded is the story of one of your companions.
She kind of just smirks and what are the rules on being invisible in the Mages College?
I mean, if you can get away with it.
She makes her familiar invisible
Mm.
and sends it down to you. Because owls are stealthy as fuck.
Okay.
What's your owl's name, by the way?
Bum, 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 bum.
Thane.
Same? Oh, Thane. Okay. So Thane flies down, lands on the top of a bookshelf, kind of watching over Amrit's shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
One of the bookshelves on to his side.
Mm-hmm. And she
And-
sees through his eyes for a moment.
Mm-hmm. So Amrit is holding the book on the Dwemer language, with the blueprints out on the table in front of him. But inside the book of the Daedric stuff, he's writing using a quill dipped in blood into another one of those black books.
She's like,
Being stealthy about it.
Such an Amrit thing to do.
Yeah. She's like, interesting.
I'm not kidding class who's reading naughty books in the middle of class.
Okay. She'll kind of stare at the book for a few more minutes, and then she'll move on.
Just
Since
like
she's only able to see the pages that are being written in currently, she's
you turn and you're not in the Mages Guild anymore. You are instead in a world filled with a sickly greenish light that kind of pervades everything. All around you are tall bookshelves stacked in ways that seem to defy logic, in twisting corridors of these just shelves after shelves of books and scrolls, loose leaves of paper swirl throughout some areas, almost like little dust devils of written pages. And ahead of you by about 30 feet is Amrit, still holding his book, but also, it looks like he had kind of tapped the page as if he was finishing a sentence. Amrit,
Mm-hmm.
you're writing down what's left of Zira's story. And the moment you place that last period on the page, when you look up, you're back in Apocrypha.
Cool.
Yeah. And when you look around, you're in a similar hallway as you were before, but this time, several feet down the hallway, you see Nysra.
He's like, oh shit.
What in the Daedric and the Daedric's names are you doing here?
A bit of light reading. She smiles.
You came across a black book?
Yes. I didn't know one so young as you could read or write in Daedric.
Wait, there's a black book in the Mages Library?
Yes.
Oh, I want
Good luck with that.
it. I know just how to get it. Okay. All right.
She kind of gives you that look of like looking to get kicked out again.
Since you're here, don't touch anything.
Obviously.
I don't know how to send you back until Hermeus Mora gets here and sends you back himself.
Mm.
But I'm done with this page, so he should be by any time.
Now, how did you get here?
I show you the cover of the black book. I close it, show it to you.
Mm. Neato. Okay. So what's on the cover of the book?
It's just black leather.
Yeah.
I'm just showing it to you. That's exactly how I got here too.
You found a book?
A while ago.
Hmm.
Come with me. I'm just gonna go wandering until I find Hermeus Mora.
So, as you guys walk through the library, it turns and shifts in ways that kind of bend at the mind. At one point, the way you're walking, you're pretty sure where you were was initially the ceiling. Then the wall. Then somehow the other side of the corridor. Things that kind of, if you think about it too hard, kind of make your head hurt. But as you walk, you also find pools of just inky black water. And here and there you see these strange creatures wearing almost like tattered robes, floating and drifting down the corridor with these faces with tentacles that just are squid-like in nature. Like this place is about as Lovecraftian as you can possibly get. And eventually, both of you hear a voice booming throughout the library. I sense more knowledge has entered my domain.
I follow the voice and go that way.
It's hard to follow the voice as it seems to be emanating from all around you.
Oh, that's fair. Then I just stay put. I park my feet.
And you've brought a guest.
Unintentionally, but yes.
Intention does not matter here. You must be the vampire, Nysra.
Yes.
Welcome to Apocrypha, the realm of all memory and secrets. I am Hermeus Mora. Why have you come here? He asked why you were here.
When you do the slow talking, sometimes your mic forgets that you're still talking.
Gotta move it closer to my mouth.
Insert into mouth.
The new the new ASMR.
Is he asking Nysra why she's come here?
Yes.
He knows why I'm here.
Because you're a greedy boy and want all the knowledge.
Yes.
She kind of pauses for a moment and she says, an undying curiosity.
Clever. And for a brief moment, you actually see the hallway of bookshelves around you move, shifting positions. You hear the sounds of sliding sheaves of paper. Above you, some of the stacks of books they look like they're about to fall in and collapse on you, but instead they form an arch that then kind of, in fractal patterns, kind of replicates itself into a rosette before opening up, and the shelves kind of come down, sinking into the floor, until both of you are standing on this plateau overlooking the endless expanse of Apocrypha. In the center of this plateau, there's a pool of water out of which rises a writhing mass of oily black tentacles, and an unfathomable number of eyes that all open up, peering at you before eventually disappearing. And then the center of the mass opens up to reveal one large squid-like eye. He says, "Those who are curious tend to find themselves in my domain. Few return."
An eternity in a library. Doesn't seem quite as awful as one might think.
Go ahead and do a willpower saving throw for me.
That would be a 21.
In your mind, you get brief flashes of those like Cthulhu-like creatures that you'd seen earlier, tearing people apart. Wanderers who'd accidentally found themselves in Apocrypha or otherwise had forced their way into this realm of oblivion. You see another brief image of a man approaching one of those inky pools a little too close, and a tentacle reaches out from the pool and pulls him in, where he ends up being dissolved. Just horror after horror after horror. With your willpower saving throw, it doesn't startle you or scare you, but it does come across as a warning.
She kind of lets out a slow breath and looks at him and says, "Compared to what I would face in other places, at least here, I wouldn't hurt anyone." And she says that in Daedric.
You get almost like this sense of acknowledgement, kind of like the closest thing to respect you could receive from a Daedric Prince. And the eye turns toward Amrit and says, "You have stories for my library. What have you brought for Hermeus Mora?"
I have the completed stories as of yet of Zira and myself.
Do you hold out the book when you're saying that?
I do. Yes.
The book bursts into green flame. Half the audience goes, "Green flame!" But
Disney movie.
And the writing that you had put in, you had written it in Aldmeris, it shifts and becomes Daedric. Hermeus says, "Their stories are not yet finished. I feel there's more to come." And a single tendril reaches out and touches Amrit's forehead. I would like you to make a willpower saving throw, followed by an intelligence saving throw.
The question is this something I want to resist?
It might be.
It might be. But it might not be. I don't know.
I don't know. A tentacle touched your forehead. I would recommend resisting.
Okay, so willpower and then intelligence? Willpower would be a 21.
Okay.
Intelligence would be an 18.
Okay. In your mind's eye, you see a scroll. And on it is a diagram for an arcane circle. And then you find yourself standing in a ritual room for the worm cult. On a table in the center of the circle, there is what appears to be some innocent commoner. And above her, a worm cult priest is wielding a deadly ceremonial blade. All around her in various spots are soul gems, and your trained eye can tell that they're not filled yet. But they appear to be normal soul gems. Another mage outside the circle extends his hands and begins making these soul gems levitate just above where the sacrifice, as it were, was going to be, and starts sending them closer to the center of the circle. And the soul gems eventually touch and are pressed together, and you can hear cracking as the gems are trying to resist the sheer amount of arcane pressure that they're being put under. But eventually a blast of energy radiates out from them as they fuse. And above the woman, there is now a single black, unfilled black soul gem. At which point the priest plunges the knife into her chest, and you see her soul get pulled into the black soul gem. And when you're back in Apocrypha, you realize you now have an intuitive knowledge of how to create a black soul gem.
Cool.
You know, if you want to sacrifice people, innocent people.
So you get to add that to your spell list.
Nice. What level spell is that?
5th, I believe.
Yep.
Create black soul gem?
Yo.
Cool. Black soul gem. Okay.
Then, as the second story bursts into flame and is transcribed into Daedric, you are now back in Cyrodiil.
Oh, fuck.
Many years before. At one point, you had been fighting a Daedra, but you had survived the onslaught. You're injured, but otherwise still fighting. And as the fighting's going on, you see a younger high elf ends up being felled by a dark elf sword mage. You're able to fend off and slay the dark elf mage, but when you look down, you see that the younger high elf has already died. And when you look over his insignia, you know he's from your own regiment, one of the survivors to have swum up onto the shore from Lake Rumare. And in your mind, you hear Hermeus say, "From your story, you have suffered much loss. What would you do with the power to bring back life?"
Bring back those who have died unjustly.
Indeed.
Yes.
He pauses for a moment. And then your memory shifts. You start doing something that you're pretty certain you hadn't done at the time. You place your hand on the young dark elf's face. Or forehead, rather. And with the
Dark
you
elf
see,
face?
or not dark elf, the high elf.
Okay.
And your hand begins to glow with a pale blue light of magicka. And the body under your hand begins to change. And where's I had the spell up, and then there we are. Go ahead and roll a D100 for me, or at least percentile dice.
I got an 88.
The high elf's body begins to change. There's more muscle beginning to grow, and his skin goes from being that radiant golden color of the Altmer to a deep green, and tusks begin to protrude from under his lips. And when he opens his eyes, you're no longer looking at an Altmer, but an Orsimer. And he looks up at you and says, "General?"
You'll be okay.
He,
But you should not call me General anymore.
he looks confused. He says, "Why not?"
I grab his hand and show him his own hand.
By the 8 gods, what happened to me?
You died, and it was the only way I knew to bring you back.
He kind of... he begins to panic. He's like, I'm an Altmer. I'm an Altmer. I'm not going to live my life like this. And he begins to thrash a bit. He looks at me. He says, "Turn me back! Turn me back now!"
Can I sit on him? Can I just hold him down?
Sure.
Calm down. Calm down.
He's thrashing a bit more. He's definitely freaking out. He still hasn't quite realized the newfound strength that he has, so he hasn't thrown you off yet. But he has managed to find his blade. And before you can react, he says, "I'll not live like a savage." And he plunges the blade into his own heart.
No. Damn it.
And when you're back in Apocrypha, it takes your mind a bit of time to adjust. As you now have two memories at the same time of the same event with different outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
In one, you just found him defeated the Dark Elf and he was lost and you had to move on. But in this one, you had obviously reincarnated him as an orc. And now you also have the knowledge of the spell in your mind.
What level is that one?
I think that's also a 5th level.
Okay.
But there's a trade-off. Your wisdom ability score, the score itself just drops by 1.
What? Okay.
As the effects of the way reality has been bent and your understanding of the change in reality kind of eats at your sanity just a little bit.
Okay. Drops a bunch of my stuff.
Are you the asshole who's causing time fluxes?
Maybe.
God damn it.
You gotta erase a lot of numbers here. Hold on. Give me a second. My will score was an even number, so now I have to move everything. Three.
And the eye turns back to Nysra.
Mm-hmm.
You have the mind of a scholar. What would you have to offer me in exchange for the blessings of lost knowledge?
Oh, please be your story. Please be your story.
She kind of glances over at Amrit,
who's nursing a severe headache.
Yeah. Knowing that he writes in the book events that have happened, but that book also contained events that didn't. Or maybe did, but have changed since that star has appeared. She's just like, a life lived like mine as long as I have been has knowledge lost of its own.
You gotta get the feeling of almost like bemusement coming off of the prince. He says, "There are many records of the first of the vampires. Few are accurate." And he says, "If you were to tell me of when you were turned, I will grant you knowledge in exchange."
Seems a fair enough trade. Knowledge for knowledge.
And one of those inky black tentacles reach out and touches you on the forehead.
Uh-huh.
All those centuries ago.
Just so long ago.
So long ago.
Very, very long time ago.
You're in a small village in Skyrim. It's not unlike any of the other Nedic villages that were around at the time. I mean, most of your family and fellow villagers were loggers, kind of trimming boards down to size, shipping them out to other cities and the like. And one day, you see a young woman outside of the village. And she's coming forward, and it looks like her clothing is soaked in blood. And she has a panicked expression in her face. And she cries out, "Help me! Help me!" before collapsing to the ground. What do you do?
I go to her and check to see if she's still alive.
It looks like she's still breathing, but is kind of in some minor fits. What she needs is a healer.
Does my village have a healer?
Yeah, not quite a cleric, but someone who's decently versed in herbs.
Okay.
Like
I call out for them.
Okay. Your father's actually the nearest person. He says, "What's wrong, love?"
And I tell him to go get the healer.
As you're speaking, he come closer, and he did see the little girl. He nods and quickly runs back to the village. And after a bit, the healer does come out, and he agrees. What she needs is some healing, and he says the best place for me to be able to do this is back at my shop. Please help me take her back.
Okay, I assist.
Okay. Eventually you get into his shop. What's his shop like?
It's probably a decent size shop with his house, I assume, attached. Lots of herbs and other things hanging to dry. And a workspace at the front for when he needed to perform treatment on any of his patients in the town.
Okay. So the scent of dried frost miriam kind of fills the air in here, along with tundra cotton. And he immediately sets to work making a poultice in a mortar and pestle. And he looks to you, he says, I need you to go get me Father Gerald from the shrine. We may end up needing to perform last rites if I'm not able to help her quick enough.
Yes, sir. And she runs.
Yeah. Father Gerald is someone that the whole village knows. He's been a priest there for about as long as anyone can remember. And you return with him in tow back at the apothecary. At this point, enough attention has been garnered that it seems like about half the town is now in here, kind of waiting with bated breath to see if the apothecary is able to, or the healer is able to save this strange poor girl. And at one point, she kind of gasps and convulses a little bit. And for a brief moment, you notice that her teeth, she's got fangs. And you've never heard of anyone having fangs before.
She kind of stares at her for a moment, like, and kind of like reaches out to, like, she's going to touch the girl's like face, and then withdraws her hand before she actually does.
Mm-hmm.
And she asks the healer, what's wrong with her mouth?
He looks at you and says, "What do you mean?"
Her teeth, they're not right.
He leans in and lifts her lip and sees the fangs. He's like, "How strange." Says, if I can keep her alive, perhaps that's something we can ask her. And he manages to get a poultice finished up, and the place where she'd been bleeding was a gash on her side, and he quickly begins working to stitch it up, but before your eyes, and before he could finish stitching it, the wound closes itself up. And her eyes open. The next few things you remember are all a blur. Screaming, carnage, blood everywhere. And then, later that night, the town around you is burning. There are very few people left. Some have fled, most are dead. And this girl, now a woman of a beauty that you can't possibly describe, is standing over you, reaching out her hand as if to help you stand up. And all down her chin and front, there is blood. "Come, little one. I won't hurt you."
She cautiously takes her hand, more confused about what happened and what's going on
Mm-hmm.
than anything else.
She peers into your eyes. "Such a pretty thing. Tell me, did you ever dream of being beautiful forever?"
And she stares at her for a moment and she says, why dream for things that cannot be?
Oh, but it is a thing that can be. Imagine being able to see all that this world has to offer, and being beautiful and young for all eternity. Imagine walking amongst Tamriel's inhabitants as an Aedra would.
She kind of looks at her and thinks about it, and she's like, as an Aedra? Like trying to discern if that's what this woman is essentially offering her.
She strokes your cheek, says, "As something better than an Aedra."
gets really confused for a moment because I'm guessing, as far as religions go, the Aedra are basically gods.
Yes.
And she can't think of anything that is better than an Aedra. I do not understand.
Oh, you don't have to understand right now. But I could offer you a similar gift. And she smiles and says, and I should love to have someone as pretty as you in my family.
The whole village is on fire. Probably everybody else is dead. She's
I'm guessing someone just came in. Just came into the house.
Yeah, someone just came.
she kind of looks around at the village and all but what little is left of it, and says, "And we can go away from here."
Yes, we can go far away from here.
At that time period, what would be a place that a small villager would want to go?
Possibly one of the large cities of the Aliads.
Okay, she'll say like one of those cities.
Yes, we'll go see all of those cities. We may even see the White Gold Tower itself. Just you and me and the rest of my children.
She thinks about it for a moment. Promise?
And she smiles. She says, I promise.
Okay, she takes her hand.
And she pulls you up and she says, that's what I like to hear. What's your name?
Give me a second. I can find a name.
Prepared
for what she used to be called.
Disappointing.
She hasn't gone by that in centuries.
Amrit.
I muted the mic because if I'm typing, you'll hear it.
Oh, fair.
But we need something happy. It's recording.
Fine. Here.
Look on your phone. Okay.
Stop scooting around.
I scoot. All right, Tachashi.
When the pain eventually subsides, what you see is Hermeus Mora with a tentacle extended and touching Nysra's forehead. And you're seeing in her something you have not seen before. And in your mind, you're pretty sure you might never see again. But you see tears running from her eyes.
Oh no. Okay. Okay. Does it look like she's in pain or just going through an emotional moment?
Both.
Yeah, both.
I think I want to move over to her, like if I wasn't already really close, and just gently take her hand and give it like a comforting squeeze.
Okay. Coincidentally, that's right at the moment where the woman had taken her hand in the memory.
Coincidentally. Where in the frick nuggets did I put?
Do I think Hermeus Mora can multitask?
You're not sure? Nobody can
Or
quite
do I
understand
not
the mind of a
want to know?
Daedric Prince?
Okay, that's fair. I don't want to interrupt, but I have a question.
Okay. Shoot.
I mean, I can wait.
Okay.
I wanted to ask it of Hermeus Mora, so I'll just wait until he's done. My book's not on fire anymore, is it?
No.
Okay, so I can grab it and take it back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'd like to do that.
Her name was Sarah, Cera.
Okay. And she says, Sarah, what a beautiful name. You can call me Mother. Mother LeMay. And then came the pain as she sank her teeth into your neck. And it's in that moment where, when your eyes kind of open and you stagger back from where you were standing, your face is covered in tears for the first time in centuries. And the tentacle retracts back into the mass that is Hermeus Mora. And he says, I am one who honors my agreements. And in your mind, your knowledge of arcane healing kind of reorients itself, and you realize there's a way where you can heal the undead. There's a way where you can heal it just like a cleric would some normal mortal's wounds. And he says, you may find this useful in the months to come. And you have gained necromantic healing as a spell.
Oh, man.
Is that a 5th level spell?
I'm not sure. It might be a 3rd level, but...
Find out for me so I know where I'm putting it in my book.
I need to get that spell. Jesus. It is holding your hands.
Yeah. Question.
Mhm.
Because as far as like 5th edition goes, undead characters don't suffer damage or anything like that from normal healing spells. So is necromantic healing?
So normal healing has no effect on undead. No effect on undead or constructs. So necromantic healing Has no effect on living creatures or constructs.
Okay.
I need to get that spell.
Hey, I mean, my solution to healing Nysra was that she'd just eat people.
That's fair.
Plenty of heals, and it takes out an enemy at the same time. What level is it?
It's a 3rd level spell.
Okay. Okay.
Both of you have proven to be worthy servants. I look forward to learning more from you. And the mass begins to collapse in on itself and dissolve.
Wait.
Yeah, you call you call out, and the mass slowly unfurls and opens its eye again.
Yeah.
Our party has not by death lost another member, and I wondered if I could trade for their story.
He kind of peers at you with that just impossibly deep gaze. He says, "You will gain both of their stories in time." And he begins furling back up and disappearing. The bookshelves begin to come back up, but this time they're the bookshelves of the library in the guild. The green light fades and is returned to the candlelight that you had left behind. Nysra, you're back up on that balcony by the display case.
Mm-hmm.
But the book inside the display case is no longer the black book. It's instead a copy of one of the Archmage Shalador's journals. Also closed, but
Okay.
And in your mind's eye through Thane, you are able to see Amrit, and it looks like he's still where he was, but it looks like, kind of like you are, he's taking a brief moment to kind of like recalibrate as to where he's at and what has changed.
There's a single tear coming from Thane's eyes. A single little owl tear. Slowly moves down his beak and drops on Amrit.
Oh no. Okay.
It starts raining in the guild, Amrit.
No, it's just a little drop. Like right on your ear. Like it's just like, whoa.
And
Okay.
what do you two do?
I close up the black book, put it away, and go back to my Dwemer language teaching myself.
Mm-hmm. And Nysra?
She can still kind of feel the warmth of Amrit's hand after it touched hers. And she kind of just stares at it for a moment.
Aww.
Oh, shucks. Because her hand is cold as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming Mother Lamea's hand was also cold, so there was definitely a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of just stares at it, a little confused as warm because she didn't quite notice that Amrit had grabbed her hand when they were in the library. And then she kind of like shakes it off and begins to look for a different book to read.
Okay. So you two continue your research. Do you ever meet up to talk about what you've experienced?
Nysra won't seek out Amrit to discuss it, but if he comes up to discuss it with her, then she'll talk about it.
Okay.
Probably once he's done translating for the day. Probably as they're leaving for the day.
Okay.
Probably just quietly ask, "Are you okay?"
She kind of glances down over herself. I'm fine.
I mean, traveling to and from and experiencing Apocrypha and Hermeus Mora themselves is a stressful experience, to say the least. Are you okay?
I'm fine.
All right. And I drop it.
Over the course of the next week and a half or so, you go back and forth from the library, researching, studying. Amrit, you are able to learn how to interpret the Dwemer written language. And the blueprints are absolutely fascinating. You're pretty sure that neither you nor anyone else in the world right now has the technical prowess to be able to build something like this, but given what you're gleaning from it, part of you thinks nobody ever should. And after some time, you guys are seated at the table for breakfast for Amrit and watching people eat for Nysra.
She sometimes eats to keep up appearance, although it's usually probably like things that most people would be like, that's a dessert, and she's like, that look of fight me.
I'm an adult.
She's like, it's not like I'm worried I'm gonna get fat. Like, eating
Okay, so you're probably nibbling on a sweet roll then. When Zod makes a comment about how much he misses the little Argonian and goes to summon Pierre, and before your eyes, there's a mud crab and Lyra. I was wondering where he was running off to. And that's where we'll leave off the side quest.
Yeah.
So, for those of you watching, thank you so much. If you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. Hit that bell icon to be notified of when other Elder Scrolls videos come up. If you're interested in running a game of Dungeons & Dragons set in the world of Tamriel, I will include a link in the description below where you can go to the website and possibly even donate to the creator to help encourage more supplements, more edits and such for the already existing books. Thanks again so much. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving if you're in the United States, and we'll